Listening to this interview for me was literally nails on the chalkboard. I'm sorry, y'all. I cannot save that white man. Hi everyone, my name's Dimitri, and welcome back to DimitriTube. Chris Harrison f***ed up. Let's talk about it. I gotta give a shout out to Hello Heaven Lay. She was the one who gave me the idea for putting this video together. Now, I am a new YouTuber here and I'm trying to grow my channel, so if you're enjoying these updates, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. It helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And happy belated Valentine's Day to all of you. I spent pretty much all day Valentine's Day putting this video together, so in the spirit of love, if you could like this video, I would greatly appreciate it. And last thing before I get started, if you have not watched my previous video on whether or not I think Rachael is racist, or if this is just a lazy feminist TikToker, definitely watch that video first. I'll post the link above. Sorry, one final thing I have to say before I get started on this video. So if you don't know already, I am a no-name YouTuber who enjoys reviewing and watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I am literally just here giving my opinion on one of my favorite reality shows. If you don't like my opinion or you don't want to hear an opposing view to this situation, feel free to click off this video. You do not have to watch it. But for those of you who enjoy my opinion and listening to my updates, please keep watching. I do appreciate the support. Let's get it. So unless you've been living under a rock, you know by now that Rachael Kirkconnell has posted an apology to her Instagram account. I will post a link to her apology in the description below. I already know that this apology is not going to be good enough for the majority of the audience. This whole fiasco requires a press conference or at least an open conversation, but as I mentioned in my previous video, ABC is not letting Rachael do that. They did let her post this note, which honestly I was surprised about. And for those of you who think Rachael Kirkconnell is fully capable of speaking on this, we're going to dive into this, and I do have examples. Rachel Lindsay does mention this during her interview with Chris Harrison, and we will talk about it more later in the video. Now, before we get started talking about the interview, I do need to lay some things down, so let's get started with that first. During last season of The Bachelorette, there was a contestant named Zach J. During Claire's season, Claire and Zach J had a one-on-one pool date, and there was a scene during that date that many people considered borderline sexual assault. Now, if you missed that episode or don't know what I'm talking about, I'll post the link to my review of that episode above. But there was wrongdoing on both sides, and the producers, editors definitely took advantage of that. And Zach J, per his contract, is not allowed to speak on this. Sorry, I forgot to say this in the video, but if you're being borderline accused of sexual assault, wouldn't you want to clear your name? You are not allowed to make any unauthorized media appearances or speak ill of anything you witnessed while filming. And I think that goes for up until a year after your season ends. Now, if you want another example, let's talk about Luke P, who is currently being sued by ABC. Luke P was a contestant on Hannah Brown's season of The Bachelorette, and he's widely considered as the villain of the season, but me personally, I thought Jed was way more of a villain, but that's another talk for another YouTube video. I will post the link to the Luke P lawsuit below. Now, People magazine pulled the legal documents from this lawsuit, and in the documents, it said, in signing the waiver, Luke Parker agreed to not make any media appearances from the date of the agreement through 1 year after the date of the initial broadcast of the final episode of the series. The agreement also prohibited Parker from making any unauthorized use or disclosure of any information or events he witnessed or learned as a contestant, or make any negative or disparaging remarks about the series and or its principals, employees, or affiliates at any time. So how does this involve Rachael Kirkconnell? I'm glad you asked. This apology that Rachael posted to IG is not going to be good enough for most of you, but Rachael cannot make a media appearance unless it's authorized by ABC. And not only that, she is not allowed to make an unauthorized media appearance up until 1 year after the final episode of the current season ends. So like I said in my previous video, I am by no means defending Rachael. But for those of you saying that she needs to make an appearance and give more of an apology explanation, if she does that, she is going to face a major lawsuit by ABC. We have to talk about Rachael Lindsay. I know you all want to just dive into the video, but we do have to say some things about Rachael Lindsay before we start talking about it. I will tell you all up front, I am not the biggest fan of Rachael Lindsay, and I do have some reasons for it. First and foremost, I love that Rachael Lindsay was the first Black Bachelorette, and for the most part, she held the role down very well. I did not watch her season. I've only seen a few episodes, but from what I've heard, her season was very much middle of the road. Like, not the best, but not the worst either. But because she was the first Black woman ever in this role, I am grateful for that, and I am so happy she took this leap. It is never easy being the first Black person to do something, especially this. And for that, I'm glad she did it, and she will always be an icon in my eyes. Okay, so the first thing, if you listen to podcasts or other reviews of The Bachelor, people mention this sometimes. As of today, Rachael has 950,000 followers on Instagram, and she has not passed the 1 million follower mark like a lot of other leads of this show have. A lot of these reviewers and other podcasters say it's because of racism. Now, this is just my personal opinion. I do not think it's because of racism. I think it has more to do with the fact that Rachael Lindsay's season was very middle of the road. Like, it wasn't that good. And before that, she was on Nick Viall's season of The Bachelor. And again, that season was very middle of the road. Not the best, but not the worst. If you have not realized, the internet likes drama and it likes controversy. So the more drama and controversy surrounding your season, the more internet clout that you will get. Example, if you look at Tayshia Adams' following on Instagram, she has almost double the following of Rachael Lindsay. And that's because she had one of the best seasons of The Bachelorette. And if you disagree, that's fine. We can have different opinions. Put it below in the comments. Going back to Rachael Lindsay, there's a few things that she's done in the past that I just didn't really like. And I'll give you a few examples. So after Tayshia's season ended, Rachael Lindsay begged the producers not to make Ben Smith the next Bachelor. Now, I didn't want Ben Smith to be the next Bachelor either, but you don't see me out here begging production to make sure Ben's not the next one to get the Bachelor. We need to look at the bigger picture. At the end of the day, this is a television show. If production makes Ben the next Bachelor, Rachael, you don't have to watch it. Nobody is forcing you to watch this show. Next example, Rachael Lindsay is very pro-Black and she believes in fighting for racial justice. And I love the fact that she's passionate about that. But I personally get the vibe that she doesn't hang with a lot of Black people because some of her views don't seem to be critiqued by other Black people. And I have an example. During an interview with Andy Cohen, Rachael Lindsay said there is unfair pressure on Matt James to pick a Black woman. Now, I do not disagree with Rachael. There is unfair pressure for Matt James to pick a Black woman. Now, I'm going to say this as best as I can without offending anyone. Again, I'm a new YouTuber, so don't drag me too hard. So this is a white show, and the people who go on this show, especially the Black people, tend to be more proper, more educated, well-spoken, and hang in social circles with more white people. So they tend to date more white people. If you want to argue with me or you disagree with me, just put it below in the comments. For example, Tayshia dates Zach, and she used to date JPJ and Colton. Diggy Moreland's girlfriend is white. Mike Johnson dated Hannah B. Katie Moe dated Chris Bukowski. Clay Harbor dated Nicole, and his ex was Angela. And even the runner-up for Rachael Lindsay's season was white. His name was Peter Krause, and the list goes on and on. Also, side note, I think Clay Harbor is Black. If he's not, somebody put me together in the comments. The majority of Black people on this show date white, or they prefer interracial relationships. So why would we expect any different from Matt James? And going back to Rachael Lindsay, the fact that she didn't mention this, it just didn't sit right with me. It's like she wasn't looking at the bigger picture. If Rachael Lindsay had more Black people in her circle, she would have recognized this. Anyway, moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is that Rachael Lindsay, if y'all didn't know, she is a lawyer. And if you talk to a lawyer, you have to be careful what you say. Me personally, I would not even bother arguing with a lawyer. I'm near DC, and if you didn't know, Washington, DC is a lawyer town, and there's lawyers everywhere. When you argue a court case, it is not always about being right or wrong. It's about persuading the judge or the jury to be on your side. And lawyers know how to manipulate conversations more than the average person. They literally go to school for 3 extra years to learn how to do that. And I am not taking Chris Harrison's side in this, but you all need to keep this in mind when I'm explaining my thoughts on this. Last thing before we dive into the interview with Chris Harrison, I promise. So this interview was done on Extra TV. If you don't know what that is, Extra TV is a celebrity gossip, tabloidy type of website channel. They are a magnet for mess. They will attach to whatever story is the messiest and whatever gets the most views and the most likes. They are trying to put out the messiest story that they can. They are not trying to solve race relations within Bachelor Nation. That is not their goal. So the messier the story is, the more money that they bring in. And keep in mind, Rachael is working for Extra TV. So the more messy the story, the more she'll get paid. Now that I've said all that, let's dive into the interview. So at the beginning of the interview, Chris Harrison says that the internet is tearing Rachael Kirkconnell apart. They are tearing her family apart and they are pouring into her voting record. This is true. I talked about this in my previous video and I will link it above. Rachael Kirkconnell is 100% being bullied into an apology. And then 1 minute into the interview, Chris Harrison says, I have not heard Rachael speak on this yet. Y'all need to have a little grace, a little understanding, a little compassion. Now, this is the first point where Chris Harrison just went completely wrong. Chris Harrison, if you don't know the full story, why are you asking people to have compassion for one side? You could have said, sorry, I don't have enough info. I didn't do enough research. I'll get back to you. I'm sorry. Chris Harrison, if you did not have time to do research and then look into things, you could have just said that. Do not try to speak on something that you're not familiar with. Now, literally 1 minute into this interview, 1 minute, it was clear to me that Chris Harrison did not do his research. But Rachel Lindsay keeps moving forward with the interview. Now, I am by no means taking Chris Harrison's side, but if it's clear to me that he didn't do his research, it's also clear to Rachel Lindsay. So why did she push forward with the interview? She could have stopped the interview and let Chris Harrison look over a few things for 20 minutes and then move back into the interview. But Rachel Lindsay did not do that because the messier the interview, the more views and likes. And then 1 minute into the interview, Chris Harrison says, is it not a good look in 2018 or not a good look in 2021? And when Chris Harrison said that, he literally dug his grave. When I saw that, I was like, wait, no, stop, go back. Listening to this interview for me was literally nails on the chalkboard. I'm sorry, y'all. I cannot save that white man. Like, it was so cringy for me to watch. Chris Harrison, if you didn't know what you were talking about, just say that. As y'all saw in my previous video, I took a way different approach to how I viewed this. I did not ask y'all to give Rachael Kirkconnell compassion, understanding, and forgiveness. I just wanted y'all to examine whether or not she was racist or if the feminist TikToker was doing too much. And then next in the interview, Chris Harrison says that 50 million people were attending antebellum parties. Chris Harrison, we need to do our homework. Where are you getting these numbers? So moving forward in the interview, Rachel Lindsay says, there's nothing that contractually stops her from saying, hey, this isn't true. If it were me, I would come out and say something. Now, I have a lot of things to say about this. Number one, this is so dumb. We know the evidence. We saw it. We know that some of the things that Rachael Kirkconnell did are very problematic. But does this evidence constitute canceling her, bullying her family? And that's what I wanted y'all to decide in my previous video. And I'll say it again, I am by no means agreeing with Chris Harrison, but that's what he's trying to get across in the video. Is all of the hate that Rachael Kirkconnell and her family is receiving, is it justified? And like I've mentioned before, Rachael Kirkconnell signed up for this show, not her family, so why are y'all dragging her family into this? Second thing, Rachel Lindsay is throwing at Chris Harrison what I'd like to call legalese. Legalese is the formal and technical language of legal documents that is often hard to understand. It's clear that lawyer Rachel Lindsay is coming out at this point in the interview, and she's probably right. You can come out and say something is not true, but there are also a lot of things that you cannot do based on your contract. So the contestants are in this space where it's better just to stay quiet versus risking a lawsuit from the great and powerful ABC. And let me give you an example. Let's just say Rachael Kirkconnell went on IG Live and she said one of the photos is not true, it's fabricated. Well, yes, she can say something is not true. But now, is Rachael going on IG Live? Is that an authorized media appearance per her ABC contract? And this is why Rachael Kirkconnell gave us that short letter that more than likely was reviewed by ABC multiple times, instead of doing an in-person talk. And third, Rachel Lindsay was on the show in 2017. It's now 2021. Y'all don't think ABC/Disney, with some of the most powerful lawyers in the game, could have changed the contract within the past 3 years? Moving on in the interview, Chris Harrison brought up the registered Republican thing, and Rachel Lindsay agreed with him. And I agreed with both Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison, like, why are we bringing politics into this? This is the point in the interview where I really wish they had brought examples from the TikTok or from some of the allegations. Because that TikTok video that went viral, 20 to 30 seconds of it was just feminist mama talking about Rachel's voting record, her parents' voting record and political donations that her parents made. But here comes lawyer Rachael Lindsay again. If she were to pull actual evidence from the accusations, that would not have helped Rachael Lindsay's argument. And as a lawyer, she's not going to pull anything that does not help her argument. Anyways, moving on, Chris Harrison says, the woke police. Woke police is a trigger word. Chris Harrison should have known this was going to set off a lot of people. So I'm a millennial, and the majority of people who watched The Bachelor, Bachelorette are millennials. Don't get me wrong, some people who are older watch it, some Gen Z watch it as well. Now, there are just certain words that if you use it on TV, the internet, or during an interview, it's gonna set people off, and this is one of them. For example, woke police, snowflake, avocado toast, or the phrase, you're too sensitive. You gotta argue your point of view without using these terms, because it just pokes a nerve with a lot of people on the internet, so you should just avoid it at all costs. I personally don't take offense to it. I'm a YouTuber. If I was in my feelings all the time, when somebody calls me a name, I would not make it in this business. And side note, if you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and pound that like button. So moving on in the interview, Rachael Lindsay said that Rachael Kirkconnell has had 6 weeks to address these allegations. The first allegation came from that anonymous TikTok, and for the first 3 weeks, the internet was trying to put together whether or not it was real. And Feminist Mama dropped her TikTok allegations that went viral on January 26th. Which was about 3 weeks ago. So Rachael Kirkconnell has had about 3 weeks to respond. Next, Rachael Lindsay says, we've seen problematic contestants on this show before. Will ABC speak on this? Why is Rachael asking Chris Harrison that? Chris Harrison is not in charge of casting, so why would he know that? Next in the interview, Chris Harrison says, in the Women Tell All, we do get into it and Rachael is not there. When he said that, my ears perked up. If you know, you know. If you watch The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, you know exactly what that means. And this is not a spoiler YouTube page, so I'm not going to say what it means. And that is all I have to say for the interview. So a few days after the interview, Chris Harrison issues an apology, and I'll post a link below to Chris Harrison's apology. And not only did he issue an apology, he decided to step down from doing the After the Rose special. And honestly, at this point, there has been so much controversy over this season, I wouldn't be surprised if ABC just dropped having it all together. I don't know who is going to do the After the Rose special, but that is a very tall order. Not only will that person have to unpack racism, but they'll also have to do all the other hosting duties involved with the special. And this is my opinion. A lot of people want Rachael Lindsay to do it, but I just feel like they need to pick someone who's more neutral in this whole situation. Also, according to Wikipedia, Rachael Lindsay was part of a very well-known historically Black sorority. So I know this Rachael Kirkconnell sorority situation rubbed her the wrong way. Rachael Lindsay is very pro-Black. She stands for Black issues and she's all for racial justice. And that is fantastic. That is one of the things that I absolutely love about her. But personally, I think ABC needs to find someone who does not have previous ties to this situation and can come in completely unbiased. Now, I know that was a lot. Everyone take a deep breath. That was a lot to unpack. Moving forward. Where does that leave Matt James and the rest of this season? I don't know if Matt James picks Rachael, and this is not a spoiler YouTube page, so if I did know, I would not tell y'all. But hypothetically, if Rachael does win, I do not think they're going to be able to work through this. A lot of the internet has already made up their mind about what they think of Rachael Kirkconnell. And once the internet has made up their mind about something, they're not going to change it. And the trolling of Rachael Kirkconnell will likely just continue. Next thing, I've said this before on a previous review, I think during Tayshia's season, being on The Bachelor is the easy part. There's no phones, no social media, no distractions, no fame, and you're not even working. Your only focus is to get to know one another and make sure you look good on camera. When ABC kicks you to the curb, not only do you have to find a way to blend your lives together, you also have to navigate the reality TV fame and messy YouTubers like me being all up in your business. And lastly, Matt James does not seem like the type of guy who's going to want to work this type of thing out. Towards the beginning of the season, Matt James said he wants someone he can work through the tough times with. But honestly, I think a lot of that was just clout. This situation would be really tough to work through, and I really don't see Matt James wanting to do that type of work. Let's be real. Matt James came on this show because his bestie Tyler C came on the show, and it worked out well for him. He even said that during the last episode. Matt James wants to be part of the Bachelor crew. He wants wants to sell products on Instagram. He wants to go to Stagecoach. Like, I think he just wants to live that lifestyle. I really don't see him being like Rachel Lindsay or Colin Kaepernick and branding himself as a warrior for social justice. Don't get me wrong, Matt James is very pro-Black, but he's not trying to be the spokesperson for Black issues in this franchise, kind of like how Rachel Lindsay has taken on. And those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and pound the like, pound the subscribe. If you're feeling some type of way about this video, leave a comment. I want to know what you all think about this. Again, thank you for joining me today. I know this was a lot, but I appreciate you all being here with me. And be on the lookout. I should be posting a review for Monday's episode on Tuesday. That's all I have for you. Have a good one. Bye.